lives in San Antonio. Who will start for the Sacramento Kings? Anthony Slater brought up an interesting point because the conversation has really gone around, well, do you start Malik? He wants to start. He came back. He did the Kings a solid. Does he deserve to start? Do you start Keon Ellis? They were a top 5 defense with him in the starting lineup. And is that really maybe that's the smartest move, especially since they added DeMar DeRozan? By the way, I think that's the smartest move. I'm in on Keon Ellis starting at the 2.
Kevin Huerter
won
the most games that year with Huerter as the starting 2
and has started at the 2 the last 2 years. But Slater went somewhere different.
He did,
which was, let's move it all back. Let's go with DeRozan at the 2, which I think is his natural. I think that's his best position.
And maybe Keegan at 3 might be his best position.
I agree with you.
So I like that thought.
I agree with you on that 100%. And then you go Trey Lyles at the 4, which would give you a little bit of defensive help down low and give you a physical presence, if you will, to help out and take some of the load off of Domantas Sabonis. And he's a guy that can stretch the floor a little bit.
Which I had not thought of this idea, by the way.
I hadn't either. Yeah. I mean, credit to him. I really honestly had not thought of it. And I really don't hate the idea. Trey Lyles would now be a 6 foot. You're now looking at your front line at 6'9", 6'10". You could argue that's a bit undersized, but you know who else was really undersized at the 4 and the 5 were the Warriors. Went back during their title run for the most part. We've seen it work. I think my main issue with that right now, honestly, is not the fit. As a matter of fact, you can make an argument that no, you couldn't, because you have to start. I was going to say if you had Ellis and Lyles in the starting lineup, that'd be interesting. But you have to start DeRozan. But you'd be looking at Fox, DeRozan, Murray, Lyles, and Sabonis. You just said it. I think the biggest advantage of that lineup is that really everybody's playing their natural position for the most part. But my problem there now you're really thin on the bench
in the front court.
Because the way we've been thinking is Keegan's playing power forward, DeRozan at the 3, and then either Huerter or Keon Ellis at the 2, and Lyles is now bench help. If you move Lyles into the front court as a starter, good. Now all of a sudden you're looking at your backup guys as maybe Keegan slides over, Alex Len, and if he's even on the team, Jalen McDaniels.
Right.
That's where I have an issue with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the question. Certainly, I think it falls things into place a little bit more in the starting lineup, but then I think that's what would happen first. If, let's say, Lyles or Sabonis came out, probably Lyles, let's say, I think you move Murray to the 4. Everybody kind of slides, and you can bring in some of the guards and that depth off the bench. The reason I do like it is it lines everybody up a little bit better, and that's why when we talked about them not being done, I don't know that they're going to be able to add a front court player that starts for this team unless you make a trade. But if they add free agents, it's likely bench depth in the front court. So you still have the decision on who to start, whether you go this way, which is bigger, or if you kind of go with what a lot of people think, either kind of a Monk or Ellis, or still maybe even Huerter at the 2.
Well, at this point, I'm thinking more and more about, okay, well, why don't you just throw – Can we get Lauri Markkanen for Huerter and 4 first-rounders, since this will be the second year in a row now we haven't had a first-rounder play for us, basically. I'm getting used to that now. Yeah. So what's another 4 first-rounders? Screw it. Markkanen would obviously be the home run, if you will, move for them, which would cost quite a bit. There was a rumor that Danny Ainge was willing to part with Walker Kessler for a first-round pick, which sounded weird, and then turns out about a day later, it was leaked that he was asking for at least 2 first-round picks. If he's asking for 2 first-round picks for Walker Kessler, who I like very much, I think the starting price for Lauri Markkanen is 4 first-round picks and probably a starter or rotation player. So it does. You kind of get the feeling with Lauri Markkanen, and I could be wrong, that the Kings are like, well, we'll give you Huerter at 4, and they're like, no, you'll give us Keegan at 3, and they're like, no. I have a feeling that's probably about. Maybe Keegan in 2. Keegan in 2, they're asking for, and we're saying Huerter in 3 or Huerter in 4. I could be wrong there, but that seems to me the most likely line of demarcation there. But they got to add somebody else down.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't see them going into the regular season down another, that light.
Yeah, and then knock on wood, barring, an injury to the front court, then what? My goodness.
No, you get an injury. Look, we talked about this before. And don't we still have, yep, we have the salt shaker. Whoop, and knock on wood, salt over the shoulder. If either De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis miss any sort of extended time this year, you can pretty much close the curtains or at least start closing them on any playoff hopes for this team. But the way this team is set up right now, they're more able to absorb De'Aaron being out. And this doesn't mean De'Aaron's not as good as Sabonis at all.
Right.
It means they have more, like, okay, De'Aaron's out. Okay, well, you're going to put Keon Ellis in there. You've got people back there that can at least sort. There's nothing. Sabonis is out. You've got Len, Lyles. No offense to them,
right?
But that drop off is far, far greater. I can't see them not adding someone. The problem is they're cap locked right now. They have their MLE, and they have the ability to make trades.
Well, and the MLE too. Like, look, and Anthony Slater did say this yesterday. Like, a lot of the money is gone as far as the people that are of desired money to be taken. Right, those guys, the names are gone. There are a few people left, but it just feels like it would have to be a trade to get the true impactful. Now they can add more bodies, but I just the impact feels like it has to come through a trade.
I would think so. Yeah. A lot of people, I've seen this a few times, so sometimes I don't address it. I've seen a few people bring up the idea of Dwight Howard, who's been playing overseas. He's a free agent. Look, I wouldn't hate it. He's 38 years old. Right. His best days are obviously behind him. I would say the same thing about Dwight that I would probably about the people that say DeMarcus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they're enough better than Alex Len to really make that move necessary. And I don't think necessarily backup 5. I think it's got to be a 4. Because if let's say you bring in Dwight Howard, well, you're not playing Howard and Sabonis together. You're not playing Cousins and Sabonis together. You're not playing Len and Sabonis together. So you have the 5, at least you have a backup there. There's just nothing at the 4. And apologies to Jade McDaniels and golly, I'd love to be wrong on that
if he worked out.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't even know if he's going to be on the team this year. I don't think that's your answer. He certainly hasn't shown that so far. Maybe new fresh start, whatever. But you look at the guy's numbers in his career, and it's not like he's 19 years old either. He's not old, but he's not like some dude that's on the young side of developing here.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to fill this position too. It has been a team thing here for a couple years. Like, the front court's basically the same as last year, and the Kings were comfortable enough with it, knowing that they didn't have the best rim protection, not a ton of front court depth, and more nights than not they played small, and they played small quite a bit. And so I think at this point they're probably going to do the same.
One of the most popular people listed is Isaiah Stewart, old beef stew of the Detroit Pistons. 11.6.5 boards, a little over 1.5 assists last year for the Detroit Pistons on splits of 48-38. And by the way, not an insignificant 38, has made 67 3-pointers his last 2 years. So that's not a ton, but it's not insignificant. Like, that's a decent amount of threes. And he's a guy who's he averaged almost 31 minutes last year. So he got serious minutes to give you 11.6 boards. Not really a shot blocker, 6'8", 250. I don't know what the price would be. I've heard but by the way, this is also the dude that went after LeBron James. Yeah. And if you haven't seen that clip, go see that. He's not a guy. I would poop my pants if he was coming after me. So you want to talk about adding toughness. You're certainly getting that with Isaiah Stewart. As far as contract goes, Stewart is signed for the next 3 years, 4 years at $15 million per, with a team option in 27-28. $15 million per is not a terrible deal. I wouldn't hate that move. I just don't know what Detroit's necessarily asking for.
Yeah.
For a guy who's just 23 years old. If they were able to do something where it was a pick or a minor player, just basically a transactional move for the dude. But I maybe Detroit wants to get off whatever contracts they can get off and focus on Kate Cunningham's new deal. I don't know. If you can get him relatively cheap, I would not hate that move at all. We'll take a break. When we come back, it's hot.
It is.